What's up, everybody? It's your man, Brad Gilmore. Before we start the show today, I want to shout out one of our newest supporters, and that is Audible. Audible.com is home of hundreds of thousands. I'm not even joking. Hundreds of thousands of audiobooks, and they want to offer a special trial for you, the listeners of the Schmoedown Rundown. So it'll be a 30-day free trial. You get to download one audiobook that you get to keep forever. So whether you cancel it before the 30 days are up, or if you want to keep the service, it doesn't matter. You get to keep that audiobook forever. And when you get that audiobook and you sign up with audibletrial.com/schmoedown, that's audibletrial.com/schmoedown, what that'll do is that will help us here at the Schmoedown Rundown. It'll put a little extra dinero in our pockets, but we'll use the money for good and not evil. We'll try to do more things like the Rundown Schmoedown. Maybe we need a rematch between me and Paul Wolf. Maybe me and Aaron Turner need to break that tie. Maybe Frank Janisch needs another opportunity to impress. You can do that, and you can help us out with all kinds of production costs. We got to look out for our man, Chris Clark. So if you go to audibletrial.com/schmoedown right now, you will help us out. And look, I'm not just talking just to talk. I'm a user. Look at this. I am a user of Audible. There's Audible. This is some of the books that I'm reading right now. Here are the last 4 books. All right, I finished Crichton. I'm reading We Don't Need Roads, The Making of Back to the Future. No surprise there. Seinfeldia, How a Show About Nothing Became the Biggest Show on Earth by Jennifer Armstrong. Catch Me If You Can by William Abagnale, which I think is a top 3 Spielberg movie. And I'm reading the book. And then The Disaster Artist by Greg Cisnero. So that's what I'm doing right now. That's what I'm reading right now. That's what you're hearing right now when I'm driving around the beautiful state of Texas. So go to audibletrial.com/schmoedown, audibletrial.com/schmoedown. Sign up for free today. Helps you, helps us, helps the world. Let's do it. Now let's start the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Schmoedown Rundown. Introducing first, Frankie Janisch, and the host of the Schmoedown Rundown, Brad Gilmore.
What's up, Movie Trivia Schmoedown fans? It's your man, Brad Gilmore, and this is the Schmoedown Rundown, the official after show for the Movie Trivia Schmoedown. Joining me, as always, to break down what is quite possibly the biggest championship week in history, Mr. Numbers himself, Frank Janisch. Frank, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. You're right, Brad. This is probably the greatest title week we've ever seen. In my opinion, it is. Both these matches were fantastic. It was such a joy to watch these, and then, hey, let's not bury it. We interviewed Sam and Drew about their match and Sam's singles match, or title match, all of it. So it's a jam-packed episode today.
It is a massive episode. We're going to get to the dual champ Samm Levine and one half of the tag champs, the Godfather Drew McWeeny, here momentarily. Couple of news bits we want to talk about at the open here of the show. First off, let's get to some breaking news right now, though, Frank Janisch. We have to announce a Patreon giveaway, a special recipient of the Patreon giveaway, the Movie Trivia Schmoedown Patreon that is, and we're going to announce his name right now, and that man's name is Christopher Hanna. Christopher Hanna, congratulations. You have received a Schmoedown shirt with the Schmoedown crest in your chest area, so congratulations.
Is it a crest or is it a logo? It's a logo. It's a crest.
It's a crest.
Same thing? What's the difference?
A crest is more of a, it's got more of a crest shape.
Oh, okay. It's a crest-like instead of
it's
logo-like.
More crest-like, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
It's minty fresh as well.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so there you go. Yeah, it's a crest. So congratulations to Christopher Hanna one more time. You are the Schmoedown Patreon giveaway recipient. Big news there. Hey, also, though, Frank, I believe, didn't we have a big match announced via the Schmoedown this week?
I think we have the announcement of Only Stupid Answers and Scream Queens. I love Only Stupid Answers, Sam Basher and DJ Woolridge, and we saw Scream Queens a couple weeks ago, and they didn't have the greatest match going up against the Garden Hosers. I want to say Hoosiers or Garden Hoosiers or what.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, you're from Chicago.
Garden Hosers. Yeah, what it is. I can barely. I can't speak this episode. I really can't. But I'm looking forward to seeing Haley and what she can do. And because I thought they had some promise.
They had a lot of promise, I think. Yeah, I think they had a lot of promise.
And we've seen Only Stupid Answers a few times now, and they can be really surprising. And so I'm actually really looking forward to this match. But early on, I'm going to say Only Stupid Answers is going to take it.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go Screen Queen just so we can split the difference there. Only Stupid Answers. Most of the time, they don't give stupid answers. Sometimes they get correct answers, and sometimes they get wrong answers. There's never such a thing as a stupid answer, Frank Janisch. I'm just saying. Now, another thing that I wanted to talk about here, I know we're moving a little bit rapid in the show open, but another thing I wanted to talk about before we throw to our interviews with the Above the Line, the champions of the Movie Trivia Schmoedown League. Before we do that, let's talk about an honor that might even be higher than winning a championship. You know, I've spent a lot of time, as everyone here knows, with Booker T. Booker T has won 35 different wrestling championships in his illustrious career.
That's crazy.
That's true.
Crazy.
35 different championships in every major promotion ever. That's WCW, WWE, TNA, Global, all of them. He's been there. He's done that. And he's won championships. But his highest honor ever was in 2013 when he was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame alongside greats like Bob Backlund, Bruno Sammartino, Mick Foley, Donald Trump, and Trish Stratus were in his class, which is a crazy class when you look at it like that.
I
Crazy.
know two of those names.
Well, there you go. Which one? Booker T and Donald Trump?
No, Foley and Trump.
And you know Mick Foley, so you know three. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's what I meant besides Booker, yeah.
Yeah, so that was his biggest honor is getting to be on that stage, his brother inducting him in the hall, and him stepping in and being immortalized. Well, the commissioner, Christian Harloff, or the creator, we should say, Christian Harloff, floated an idea about a Movie Trivia Schmoedown Hall of Fame, and he put it to the fans in the Movie Trivia Schmoedown Facebook group, which if you're not a fan of, or not a subscriber to or a follower of, I don't know how that's possible, but if you're not, go over there. A lot of great stuff and a lot of great troll jobs by Chris Clark on that very page there. Our producer, Chris Clark, which, by the way, Chris...
I just remembered something, but at the end, I will... Okay. Yeah.
You'll reveal? Chris, how you doing, by the way?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. You guys just rock this sucker. This is great. This is a good episode.
He doesn't want us to pay any attention to him right now, and I know why.
This is all good. This is all good. This is all great. Just rock this sucker. This is a packed episode. This is just great. You make me happy, Brad. I don't know if I'm keeping this in the cup, but fuck it.
Yeah, he's going to decide that. He's going to decide that.
Anyway, well, he is the master decider, if that is a term, and if it's not, I just created it. But Christian Harloff floated the idea of a Movie Trivia Schmoedown Hall of Fame, and which 5 people would we like to see in the inaugural class. I think it's a very interesting idea. You know, the Schmoedown, though, hasn't been around the longest, but in its short run, it has produced many legendary stars within the game. Most people would say first is Dangerous Dan Murrell, among others. So what do you think, Frank? Do you think a Movie Trivia Schmoedown Hall of Fame is necessary? If so, you would like to see it. And then the third part of that question is, who would go in?
I would definitely love to see it. So I guess that's sort of on the line of necessary. But
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because you're right. It hasn't been around for that long. You could say it started in 2014. You had the 2015 team tournament. And then went over to Collider, 2016. Now here we are in 2018. So it has a few years under its belt through different iterations and formats and different players and teams, what have you. So it's kind of hard to say how big like the inaugural class should be or who should be in it. I think due to the limited amount of time the Schmoedown has been running, I think it's going to be like a very small class. We were talking about this a little bit, Brad. Like 1 or 2 people in that inaugural class, but you could nominate up to like 5 or 6 people that are worthy, but some people are more worthier, just like the NFL does, or basketball, or what have you, any other these other Hall of Fames out there. They have a class, but then only a certain amount of people get inducted. So, and that's your induction class. And so, but you're right, Dan Merle comes to mind off the top of my head. A lot of people will also point to Mark Riley because he was the first to do it. Although, and this is where it gets tricky because now you're comparing different eras. Riley was at the peak in a different era than the era we have now, where it was pioneered by Dan Merle primarily, and now we're seeing a run with Samm Levine here that rivals Dan Merle, if you ask me. So different eras and different combinations. So you could have different reasons for why someone should be a Hall of Famer. I mean, you could say Christian and Mark Ellis because they founded the damn thing, right? So you could point to that, but it depends on what kind of parameters you set forth, or if there are any.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up next, is like, what would be the parameters? Because sometimes you have to have certain statistics in other sports to be able to be even eligible for induction. Sure. And even when you think about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it's like, what, you have to... You're eligible 10 years after the release of your first album or something. There's something like that. So there's certain specifics is what I'm getting down to. Would there be any specifics needed? Do you have to be a former champion? Do you have to have won X many matches? Do what would you think would be the qualifiers?
Well, I think a qualifier would definitely be that you've held a title at some point. I think that would be one of the top prerequisites to be a Hall of Famer in this league. Certainly, there are players in this league that are great who've never held a title, and you can point to someone like Bibiani, quite frankly, who has a very high percentage accuracy, but he just doesn't necessarily have the wins to back it up, but very knowledgeable. So there's, again, what are we setting the parameters? Is it based on wins? Is it based on titles? And I think that is a good indicator to start. That's a good baseline to start wins and titles, because you can also look at people like NFL Dan Marino, never won a title, but he has a ton of records.
He's a Hall of Famer.
He's a Hall of Famer, though, right? So you look at certain players like that, and so it's not necessary you have a title, but I think the way the Schmoedown has been constructed, and that everyone's always climbing over one another to get to a title shot, to win a title. I think that has to take a huge amount of precedent in the parameters set forth for whoever's inducted. And
am I assuming that we're all probably on the same page? If we were supposed to say induct, the first guy, who's your first vote? Who's a first ballot Hall of Famer?
Yeah.
Are we all kind of in agreement that it's Dangerous Dan Merle? That seems to be the consensus online, that he would be the first guy inducted.
I think so, and that's why I say the first class should have two people, because if it's just one, it's a no-brainer that it's Dan Merle. Yeah. And now the second spot, is it Mark Riley? Is it Samm Levine?
Is it Mark Ellis?
Is it the Patriots?
Yeah.
Is it
is it Tom Dagnino? Tom Dagnino he's got a case out there to be made by somebody. I'm not the guy to make it.
Finstock, right? So it's interesting. It's an interesting conversation to have and to go back and forth with. So I look forward to all those conversations on Twitter, on Facebook, because that's a lot of fun, and I don't think anybody's really wrong. It's just, how do you set those parameters, the baseline, and all that stuff?
Yeah, and I think that having 5 people inducted in the first class or whatever it would be, I think that's just way too many. I'm with you. Maybe 2 for the inaugural, maybe, but definitely every year after, one person be recognized for their body of work moving forward. But it's somebody who, if there is a Hall of Fame established, will most definitely be eligible as a first ballot Hall of Famer, is one of our guests today. That is Samm Levine, Samm the Inglorious One Levine, being the first man to hold 2 championships in the Movie Trivia Schmoedown League. And I know we're about to get an interview with him right now. Frank's going to take that away. Frank, anything you want the people to know before we get into the interview?
I just want to say I was very thrilled to get Sam Andrew on here. Sam was very generous with his time. And same thing with Drew. Very tight schedules to kind of fit this in. So I just want to say a big thanks to them for taking the time and making the time to join us for an interview here after their big win. So, yeah.
Well, all right. Well, with that being said, let's not waste any time. Let's go to that interview with the new team champions, Above the Line.
We are joined now by the new team champions of the Schmoedown. We have Samm Levine and Drew McWeeny above the line. Congratulations on your win. I was very excited to see this match. Chris, I know you're excited to see this match. Gentlemen, thank you for being on the show. How are you guys doing today?
Doing very well, thank you.
It is our pleasure to be here. Hey, Drew, another high five.
Another F5, yeah, oh yeah!
Boom.
Excellent,
Nailed
excellent.
Yeah.
For this match, I have to believe that your confidence was very high. I mean, you guys almost beat them, or I guess some would think you did beat them the previous time. What was your confidence level? We'll start with Drew. What was your confidence level going into this match?
Well, the confidence level that I had was about whether or not Sam and I showed up that day. And that was very clear. Like, I can't do anything about their team or how on or off they are or any of that. So it all came down to walking into the studio and seeing whether or not Sam was ready. And we were both so hungry for this thing. So that was a conversation we kind of had the week leading up to it is, are you ready? I'm ready. All right, let's do this thing. And it was just a case of just arriving at the studio in the right mindset, which is this is ours to lose. So.
Yep.
And Sam, you've been in this league since it came over to Collider since 2016. Now you're in this situation going for another belt. This is basically your third title match. I want to say you had one against Merle, the previous with Patriots, and this would be the third. Is that title format?
Well, no. Then I also had another with Cushing.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
And I mean the title format though for both
Harloff.
the Ultimate Schmoedowns.
Yeah.
Those were both 5-round games.
Right.
So yeah, I was very, very familiar with the 5-round setup at this point, and so my confidence level was the same as Drew's. I mean, we can't do anything about what the Patriots are going to do. We can just focus on us and our game, and this is something that Drew and I have both wanted so much since last November when we taped the Spectacular, and so it really just came down to knowing that we absolutely had what it took to beat them. It was just making sure that we didn't make any mistakes.
Yeah, and dude, and there's no worse feeling than during a match when you feel things start to go sideways and like your Leo DiCaprio category starts turning out to be harder than you think it should be, and yeah it's just you can't control anything except after that question, just answer the next one. After that question, just answer the next one, and so you just move from strength to strength, hopefully.
Yep. And speaking of that DiCaprio category, I know you want. I'll get to this later, Frank. Sorry to jump around.
No.
If you and I had 3 more seconds of clear-headedness after they'd said Shutter Island,
yeah,
we both should have challenged and said, no, he's not a U.S. Marshal, he's a fucking meditation. Spoiler alert.
Yeah. That's definitely up for interpretation.
Yeah.
It's just I know that the thing that I wait for is 1 or 2 questions into the match. It's clear if you're in sync or not. For me, in solo matches, that's where I know whether or not I'm doing anything that day. Like, there's a traction that you just feel going away. With a team match, you always have somebody there to help you get that traction back in if you slip it all.
So, yeah, let's jump right into the match here. First round. And what I'm curious about, is there some sort of, like, point threshold you want to reach? Or is it, I mean, obviously you want to get every single question right, but is there a point where you go, if we don't get to at least 10, 11 points, maybe we're not going to do so well? Or is that something you're not thinking about?
I don't think about it like that. I think you answer the questions as best you can. I've tried to become really cautious using my JTE rules in round 1. I'll know when they ask the question if the answer is in there somewhere. If I know that it's in there somewhere, but it's just going to take me 30 seconds to get there, I'll use one. If I know I've never seen this movie. I don't recognize those actors, whatever it is. I would never burn one like that. So it's just, you answer what you know.
Yeah.
Is it safe to say that, because you bring up the JTE rules, is it safe to say that you guys trust each other to utilize your JTE rules in the first round if need be? Like, so you're not using or wasting it in a sense?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Go ahead, Drew.
I think if you don't know it at all, you know pretty quickly you don't know it at all. And if you're fishing for it, it's fine. You take that moment. My first match of this year, I hadn't played in a while. And if I had just asked the JTE rule and then written out Sleeping Beauty, I would have gotten a question correct. So it's a case sometimes of understanding that you can just use that for a few breathing seconds.
Yeah.
But yeah, just use it right. It's Sam. One of the things that Sam helped me with when I started the team thing was strategy, because I didn't have much. And I think Sam understood the game really well. So even in our first match, just a little back and forth helped me kind of clarify some of the strategy in the game. And it has really served us well since then.
Absolutely.
I would think
and
so,
also
yeah.
to Drew's credit, since we've been playing as a team, I don't think he has ever used a JTE rule in round one. I think if our team has ever used them, it's come from me.
It helps when you go 8 for 8, just about every time you're out there. So.
Just like it's no big deal.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal, and it's definitely you every single time I sweat it. So
yeah.
All right, so let's get we got through the first 2 questions unscathed, controversy-wise, and 3 questions into this match, things go a little off the rails here. Big Trouble in China, the thing. Obviously, JTE recognized Big Trouble in Little China was incorrect. Then we get to Drew's board thing. Snyder points it out. They're fighting tooth and nail now for every point because JTE missed here, and it's a big point. I mean, every point's a big point.
Every point's a big point in a title match. So here's what happened.
Yeah.
The Patriots historically in their title matches, much like I don't know which sports team to use as an example here. Let's say the Yankees, even though I know they're a Boston team. The Yankees historically, when it comes to like challenges, close calls, things like that, they've almost always gone the Yankees' way, which is why so many people dislike the Yankees. The same thing has happened to the Patriots. Whenever there are little discrepancies over the history of all their games, they tend to fall the way of the Patriots. Case in point, their most recent match against Top 10, that was absurd. The ruling on the betting round. Where not only did Roca and Nos not get the points, but then the Patriots were allowed a respin.
Sure.
That was an absurdity. So, as far as Snyder challenging that, he felt he had, I think, history on his side. And also, he, in the moment, mistakenly did not realize that the word little is a giant portion of the full title of a movie, whereas the is an article before the important word.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If there had been a precedent with articles, I wouldn't have even blinked. But I have seen so many times in the game, you write the one word and the article isn't important. And so I felt like there was precedent on our side in that. Big Trouble in Little China.
That's completely different.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. And so the problem was that, and the reason people are even still talking about this is I think the Schmoes made the right ruling, but they cited the wrong reason.
Right.
They said, because there is no movie called Thing, we're going to give him the point. Because now everybody's saying, well, there's no movie called Big Trouble in China, so JTE should get the point. That's not not correct.
Yeah. It's not The Room and Room.
Right. Exactly. The difference
there, and in that case, I would be held to that standard. If they were asking for the Brie Larson film, and I wrote The Room, yes, absolutely, I would have that wrong. And I think there's a judgment call there, but I'm down for it. If they want to say you have to write every word of the title to get it correct, I'm down for that. And, I am of the opinion that if you really want to get crazy about it and really hold us to a standard, it should be the way it appears on screen in the goddamn film. So when you write
Carpenter's The Thing.
So if we really want to be sticklers, we can be sticklers. I'm down for it. Just tell me what the rules are.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's a
Right.
fair way to put it.
And so just to put a little point on that, so my guess is now they will enforce articles have to be written on your board. What they can't do is suddenly start enforcing it in the middle of a round when it penalizes a team from getting an obviously correct question.
Yeah, I think we've seen in the past when situations have come up in matches, they realize we're gonna have to change this, and then they wait to the end of the new or start of the new season to implement the changes. I think it's fair to say we will see that happen, especially next year. At the end of this round, it was all tied up at 10, but Jeff Snyder, in that drama category, he sneaks in there. It was between Michael Douglas and Val Kilmer. Yeah. It was a 50-50 shot, and
It's a movie I'm sure we all saw one time in 1996.
Oh yeah.
Never
Yeah, that's it.
revisited, and I was like, ugh, which was the one who gave up the... I don't...
And of course, Snyder would be the one to get it, to tie it up, and that would still give them the slight edge there going into the second round, being the champs and all. They opt to go first. They go drama, and they run the table here. Were you guys at all concerned about how well they played in that second round?
No, because I thought they gave up 2 easy points.
Okay.
Because obviously Drew and I both knew it was the tango in Scent of a Woman and Toothpicks in Rain Man, and they left points on the table because I think they both knew but were hesitant.
Mm-hmm.
And so they opted to go for multiple choice, which again left points on the table for us.
I think it's one of the things that you pointed out, and I believe it is, I think multiple choice is dangerous. And I think it's one of those things, if you know the answer, answer it. If you don't know the answer, don't hand somebody an advantage. Don't narrow things down. Don't guess while you're out there. I think guessing is really dangerous because you then hand somebody something that's already been cut in half so they can kind of figure it out. I am all for answer what you know, and otherwise sit on your hands and say, no, it's your question if you want it.
Sure, and I think by the Patriots going first, this plays into your preferred strategy of sitting back and letting the other team go ahead in the first in the second round. So were you pleased that they decided to go first?
I was thrilled.
Yeah, I always prefer that position, but then again, I'm like I said, because it's not about their game so much. I would much rather be in the position of, great, we know what they do, we know what they've done, we know what they've got, we know what they posted. Now it's just up to us to chip away at what we're after. So I think I actually find it puts less stress on us. I think going first, you're setting the tone for everything. I'd much rather let them punch themselves out than we come in and do what we do.
Do you think going first only works if you run the table for the full 12 points and you go 2, 2, 2, 2, 2 all the way through? Do you think that's the only way going first is the advantage?
I mean, even then, it's not necessarily an advantage because then the opposing team will know exactly how many points they need, and if they're slightly unsure but would maybe go multiple choice, but knowing that they need the full 2 points, they might guess correctly. Whereas if they're going first, they don't know how well you're going to do, and they would, much like Snyder and JTE did, be willing to take less points on questions that they absolutely knew. So it puts us in the catbird seat. And also, I'd like to add, going second gives you a great advantage. Let's say you look at the wheel and there's 2 categories you definitely don't want it to land on. And your opponents land on that wedge. And then they have to answer those questions. Now that spot is safe from you when you spin the wheel.
Yeah. And there's not many pie pieces that we won't spend. I mean, even this time when we respun Festival Darlings, it wasn't a case of, well, we can't answer that. It's maybe there's something we could do better with or that we'd have more fun doing. And so we're spending looking for what's, this is also a show. We're looking for something that's going to be fun for us that we're going to have a good time doing. And I do enjoy this. Like, I enjoy the challenge of it. So I am looking for a category where it's going to be a fun back and forth with them and where they're going to ask questions about stuff I love. And that's more the case of why we pick these categories, not fear necessarily. So
yeah, because I wanted to ask you pass up on Festival Darlings. They've I've heard they've retooled that category since Bibiani got a hold of it. They've retooled it. I was wondering if you were still unsure if the retooling would be more favorable or it would still be as deep cut as it was in that first time Bibiani got it. But you went to Leo. You ended up on Leo. Were you guys satisfied? Was that one of the wedges where you're like, that's fine?
I find, and this is something that I don't know if we've even had a chance to talk about, Sam. I think that the thing with questions, and this is it's funny, there's a moment between you and Christian during the match where you roll your eyes at something.
And I said 4 and 2.
And it's the first time I've ever seen Christian go, what do you want me to do? there's a
and my answer is fucking read the questions before you ask them. That's what I want you to do.
And I get what the thing is. And it's really it's not ease or not ease, because I don't think that's fair. I think, for some people, the young adult question is a difficult question. It's not for us, but that's because we know the answer. It's about context. What drives me crazy are questions where they give too much context. Sure. In this film, co-starring these 3 people who obviously aren't the people we're looking for, and this character is played by this guy who was also in this movie. That's too much goddamn context. Who was Leo's co-star third build in this film is not enough context. And that's the problem with some of these questions, is they need to be read and really read out loud before they ever get to us. And you need to think about, is it confusing? Is it contextually fair? Does it do a good enough job of asking the question without giving too much information? A great example was at the free-for-all. They asked a question about Casablanca. And for the first time ever, they didn't say Humphrey Bogart, or they didn't say it in a way that led you to know who they were talking about. They simply said, in Casablanca, Rick, blah, blah, blah. And it was interesting to see the people at the table who knew that Rick was Humphrey Bogart, and the people who simply knew, well, I know Humphrey Bogart's in it. I have no idea if that's who he is. And that, to me, is the real difference. I want questions that don't hand it to me on a plate with context, but I also want that across the board. I just want questions to be fairly asked.
I could not agree with you more. And the reason I said at one point during the match to Christian 4 and 2 was an ongoing conversation I have with Christian about the difference between a plot-specific question and a general question about a movie. General questions are questions that I assert someone could answer having looked at the movie's poster or seen the trailer, whereas a specific question could only be answered reasonably by someone who had seen the film in its entirety. And what I said 4 and 2 was, of the 6 questions the Patriots were asked, 2 of them were plot specific, the questions that they had to go multiple choice on, of all things, which were what did the waitress drop in Rain Man, and what dance was in
Scent of a Woman.
The Scent of a Woman, thank you. And so you can't answer those questions if you haven't seen the movie. You're guessing if you haven't seen the movie. But the other 4 they were asked were all, who's the lead of this movie? What was, who plays this guy? Who directed this? That's like, okay, I've seen the poster for that movie. I can have a reasonable shot of guessing and being correct.
That happened to me recently. I was just updating my digital library and moving stuff over from disc to digital format and copying things. And so I was looking at posters as I was doing that. And I happened to look at the poster for The War Wagon with Kirk Douglas and John Wayne. And then when I got the question, it was like, oh shit, I just saw that poster. I've never seen that film. I haven't seen the film yet. But because I had just seen the poster, I could answer it. And fine. But I'm all for questions that force you to really know the movie. I like that. I prefer that.
And this is what I think fans of yours and throughout the Schmoedown community love about Sam and you, Drew, is that you guys really are invested in the Schmoedown, the questions, the strategy, and I think that makes for everyone's viewing experience that much more enjoyable because we know this isn't just a couple of guys walking in like, yeah, let's answer some questions. This isn't bar trivia. This is legit, and you guys go for it every time. And I think it's safe to say that everyone out there appreciates your passion for the game.
I certainly hope so. I know there are some Patriot fans who don't appreciate our passion for the game.
Not at all. Not even a little bit today. So yeah.
So, real quick on your Leo run there in the second round. Again, you guys don't go to multiple choice. You guys were speaking on why you don't like to go to multiple choice. But they did burn you for 2 points right there on that second question. That's, to me, when I was in the audience watching, Not typically a great sign because now they're getting points not even from their round, and they didn't allow you any opportunities to steal questions. Is that a bit deflating at that point, or are you just still gonna?
I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna spill a little secret here. Even losing one question, a stolen question there, in the back of my mind, I know Drew and I have the speed round to make up those points.
Okay.
And
so that is
if I feel good about that first round, I feel great about that third round with you, because that is clearly a round where you are comfortable now.
Yeah. So real quick,
I never let it affect us.
Yeah. We get to the wager round. Fairly.
Wait, I want to finish I just want to talk about the last question in the Leo round.
Oh yes,
which was the what's eating Gilbert Grape question.
Yes. How could I forget?
Only because in the last 24 hours, everyone who somehow has the Patriot fans who somehow have the most selective memories of any group of people I've ever seen. Really keep saying, no, that was bullshit. He never should have been given those points. He clearly saw that he was wrong and had a second chance to answer. They don't seem to realize we do not have the added benefit of seeing the question written out on the bottom of the screen. It is said out loud to us. And when you're listening to that question read out loud, with all due respect to Chris Skaliski and his band of writers, that was such a shittily written question.
And here's Chris Skaliski right now. No.
Yeah.
It is that thing where you follow the question where you believe it's going, and you were right.
Right.
If that was the question, it just wasn't. And
I said it out loud, and I was watching the replay. I have Drew, of all people, sitting next to me going, because he heard the same thing I did.
And look, I think everybody else heard the same thing as well, because I was, especially me, because I turned to Patrick Campbell, who's sitting next to me, and said, "Oh, that's what's eating Gilbert Grape," and then you backtrack a little bit to be like, "Oh, you asked for," and that I was actually confused at that point because I thought I had heard what I had heard, but I guess I didn't, and you can even hear JTE on the cut on YouTube saying, "Yep," confirming that what's eating Gilbert Grape is the answer. I even said that it seems like the answer they were looking for was kind of disguised in that wording, and even when you read the question, it's kind of, you say when you ask who and what within the same question.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's where it gets a
very
little muddy.
Convoluted question, especially to hear it out loud. What they were trying to do, and there is a way to do this, they just need to make sure it's phrased better, was ask who his co-star was without naming the film. They wanted me to know two pieces of information to get that question correct.
Right.
So to make that somewhat of a harder question, because I guess they thought, what movie was his first Oscar nomination for? Too difficult. Which I would be willing to bet, by the way, if you ask any of the younger Schmoedown players what was Leo's first Oscar nomination, they don't know. So I think that question was hard enough as is, but they wanted like 2 levels deep. So it was a very convoluted, very poorly phrased question. And for the record,
that you got right twice. You got
they
get it wrong either time. You got both versions of the question right. So nobody should be upset.
No, and they cut that in real time. I said Gilbert Grape, and then not a full second later, I went, "Oh, wait, you're asking the co-star? It's Johnny Depp." And then the look on my face is not a look of like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm making a mistake." The look on my face is, who fucking phrased the question like this?
Reading the descriptions online,
not read ahead of time by someone.
Reading the descriptions online, it's like people trying to describe the Zapruder tape, and they're talking about like the 10-second intervals where he's reloading. No. You literally go, "What's eating Gilbert?" Oh, the actor. Yeah, it's
right.
One long thought that's coming out of your mouth.
Yeah.
And by the time it's out, you've answered the question 2 different ways.
Twice. Yeah.
but correctly. So
that was not a Jane Fonda.
Yeah.
That's certainly yes.
and then the final and the best part of that, by the way, was had the Patriots challenged, there's a very good chance they would have won that challenge. But cruel fate being that Jeff completely wasted it.
Yeah.
Completely wasted it in the first round.
What's eating Gilbert Grape?
I love that they did not have the challenge to cause a stink there, and that may very well have changed the course of the game on what would have been another bullshit challenge.
I commented on the post. I think at the very least they would have scrapped the question, given you a new question had they been awarded the challenge. I think there could have been grounds for a new challenge because of the way the question was worded. Any last thoughts on what's eating Gilbert Grape? No? Okay, we're good. Excellent. Third round, fairly standard. You guys both wagered 3. Was there any doubt in your mind at that point that you weren't going to wager 3, or was it dependent on the category?
Even if musicals came up, we knew it's a title match against the Patriots. You got to play for every point you can.
Fair enough. Now, speed round, which was the round I think a lot of people were absolutely looking forward to, given the deficit you guys had at that point in the match. Sam, especially you fire out getting the first 3. Drew, you get that 4th to tie it up at 25. What kind of zone did you guys feel like you were in that speed round?
I was just happy to beat him to the buzzer once. I was like really excited. I was like, honestly, my first thought was, I fucking beat Sam, yeah. And then I almost didn't answer the question because I was just so excited that I buzzed in first. And it was like, oh shit, and then I answer it. So yeah, there was a moment of just sheer joy that I won that, and I'm like, that should be it. I hit the buzzer, so there we go.
I felt great about it. I felt great about it. I certainly have confidence in the speed round just because that's, what I like to say about myself as an actor is I don't believe that I am particularly more talented or less talented than any other actor of my ilk. Mm-hmm. I think the only skill I have as an actor that sets me aside from my contemporaries is something that you never hear about or read about, and it's my ability to memorize lines quickly. And that's not something you can put on a resume. That's something that only people who have hired me on jobs know that I can do. And if they're writer-directors who like to rewrite their shit while they're shooting, sometimes they will think of me over other actors knowing, well, shit, I know Sam can roll with the punches if I want to do that, so he's the guy for this role. I think I am no more or less talented with movie knowledge than anyone else in the Schmoedown. Well, maybe not less. I think there's plenty of people in the Schmoedown who know a lot more than I do. Mm-hmm. But the one thing I think that if I can pat myself on the back of the a little bit, is I know I have very fast reflexes with things like that. And so it's the only area of Schmoedown play that I have that extra bit of confidence in.
Because it seems like, for the most part, these questions are worded so that they are fairly standard, that they're quick gets, and it's really about who's quickest to the buzzer. It's not necessarily about a deep knowledge, and I think that's what levels the playing field in terms of the knowledge, but then obviously, Sam, you got to be quick on the draw on those buzzers.
You got to be quick on the draw. They started changing the way they phrase those questions.
Yeah.
Because those, of course, are the ones they look at ahead of time. And the way they phrase them is they read them, and now they're adding in little pauses before they start saying the words that are going to spell out what they're really asking.
Yeah.
And so that's like JTE said, that he thought I was really rolling the dice on the Anchorman question, because when they said the film Anchorman is set in, as soon as they said set is when I rang in. Mm-hmm. Because I felt very confident they were looking for San Diego. JTE pointed out to me afterward, they might have been asking, is set in what decade?
Yeah, I thought it was going to be year. I thought it was going to be either year or decade, because they make such a big deal out of it in that first film.
That's
so
exactly
those, you really are, I think, dependent on anticipation a little bit there. And I think that's another one of your skills, is you have a really good ability to sort of follow the question through where it's going.
Right.
And I think the faster you can do that, the faster you can buzz in.
Right. And also, I've been listening to the way Skalisky writes questions for a while now. Yeah. And if he were going to be asking about what decade it was set in, they would have asked, Anchorman takes place in.
There you go.
What
so there's a
decade?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There you go.
This is why you guys got the belts, because you guys pay attention to these little things. And it quite frankly, I think you need to when you're competing at this level. I think every little tidbit helps. You guys make up tremendous ground, although you're still trailing just by one now. Far better than a 4 or 5 point deficit. It's coming down to this final round. You guys, Drew goes with dance movies, gets it correct. Sam, you go with crime, get it correct. The Patriots, they get their 2 and their 3 as well. You guys, your 5-pointer. I don't know about you, but I found that was a fairly easy 5-pointer.
I wholeheartedly agree. I thought it was on par with like Who Directed Young Adult.
Now, what was our 5-pointer this time?
It was name 2 Tom Cruise movies from the 90s where he plays a lawyer.
I think that's enormously fair. And I think the fact that it's 2 movies, that it's within a specific decade, that it's fine. And especially after Who Directed Young Adult. I can't get upset anymore because I've had a question now where other people look at it and go, 5 points for that. Fine. But if you didn't know that he played a lawyer in those 2 movies, then you'd be screwed. So, again, it is fairly dependent on having seen enough of his films.
Right. And The Firm, of course, jumps out to everyone. But you and I were talking about this afterward. It's not easy to remember that he is a JAG lawyer in A Few Good Men. You know, so it's that was something. And for the record, those are the only 2 movies Tom Cruise plays an attorney in the 1990s.
Yeah.
So was it easier than that obscure quote from Remember the Titans? Yes. Was it on par with Who Directed Young Adult and Who Plays Charlize's dad in The Italian Job? Yes.
Yeah, I think, and that was my other point, was that I don't think the Patriots 5-pointer was all that difficult as well. Albeit you had to see the movie.
Not true.
Or even
he's on the poster.
Or there on the poster, or you looked up the IMDb page.
And if you know the original Italian Job, then of course it's the dude from the original Italian Job. That's going to be the big cameo there. The thing I'll say about the last round is they did something that at the time I turned to Sam and I was a little bit flustered by. I have learned since then it wasn't what I thought happened. It actually was something very different. We've been picking certain numbers, and those numbers are special to me because they're the ages of my kids. I always pick 10 and 12 because that's what Toshi and Alan are right now. And it was 9 and 11 first, and you notice they changed. Well, 10 and 12 right now is where they are. So that's always the 2 numbers we pick.
Okay.
When they picked 10 and 12, I was pissed and I was a little flustered, and it was not something I was ready for.
Yeah.
I felt like it was they figured out my numbers and they took them. It's also Jeff Snyder's mom's birthday, October 10th.
Okay.
So October 12th. So I can't remotely begrudge him picking those numbers. And it threw me in the moment, talking to him later and realizing what it was. Hey, man, they're your numbers as well. I can't claim any ownership. So I felt better about that. But in the moment, I know Sam looked at me and he got that moment.
there
look on my face.
There's Sutherland right there. You can't miss him.
Yeah.
Donnie Sutherland. Yes. So as far as the numbers, then Drew turns to me because once 2 of our 3 numbers are gone, Drew turns to me and says, "Whatever you want." So
I was a little thrown.
Yeah. Right. And so I went with 8, 3, and 1 in that order because my mother's birthday is August 31st.
I love it. So yeah, it's one of those things. You know, numbers are. We all have our little superstitions and our little stuff in the pocket. But one of the great things about what happened was somebody stepped on one of my superstitions and we did fine. So I kind of look at it that way. It's fine. Go ahead, take away some of the safety crutches, and we'll still show up.
Now the Patriots, they're debating or trying to figure out the answer. And what are you guys thinking at that point that it's come down to this? It's out of your control at this point. You've done everything you can do to put yourself in a position to win. Now it's up to them to miss. What was your confidence level that they would miss the question?
I thought it was theatrics. I thought Jeff was milking it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really did.
I thought they were putting on theatrics as well. I haven't asked him. Drew, obviously you knew the answer to that, right?
I did not. Wow. And I because I was struggling to remember, wait, which of them showed up? Was it Michael Caine or was it Donald Sutherland? I knew it was somebody from the original was in it. And so I was trying to piece it together. Yeah.
It's a little hard because he, spoiler alert, dies in the first 15 minutes of the movie.
Oh my gosh.
So but he's the only older guy on the poster.
Yeah.
He's the only one that could make sense to be somebody's father of those contemporaries. So I knew
ridiculous. I'm using the original movie to try and sort it out because that's my touchstone. I'm like, well, I know the first one really well. I don't remember I'm working it backwards.
And so I knew it, and I'm watching them, and I at one point lean over to Drew, and the last thing I want to do is say, it's Donald Sutherland on the 1 in a million chance. You know, JTE's got a fucking hearing aid in there, and he's picking shit up like Superman.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to let his name come out of my mouth. But at one point, I lean over to Drew, and I just went, I don't think this is a show. I think they don't know.
Yeah,
and
that was
because
exciting.
I'm looking at Snyder, and he is legitimately looking at JTE and going, I never saw it.
Yeah, you can see him mouth it. You can see him mouth it in the cut that they have on YouTube. You can see him mouth. I've never seen it. And
I've seen it.
And from my vantage point when I was in the audience, I couldn't see any of that. And like you, Drew, I thought it was all theatrics. I thought they were putting on a show, milking it in a typical Patriots fashion. And then after a while, probably about the time, Sam, you went to Drew and said, I don't think they know it. I was like, this is a little too long for theatrics. They would have answered it had they known it. And lo and behold, they say the wrong answer. They go with Robert Duvall, which got him the belt the first time, and didn't work out.
There's some beauty in that. There really is some beauty in that.
It's nice.
You're the champs. That moment happens.
Yeah.
We heard you, Sam. You were elated.
Well, that's the problem, is they asked a question that I happen to know the answer to, so I wasn't waiting to hear the correct answer from Christian and Mark. I knew immediately they were wrong, and we had won, and I'm sorry. I could not possibly sit on that for a split second longer than I had to. And Christian called me out, which I didn't hear at the day. I had to see the day when he was like, Sam ruined the suspense. I was like, I don't care. Sorry, buddy.
Yep.
It was a long time coming. You guys finally got the belts you guys have been chasing for so long. Drew, I mean, you had a more measured response to the result.
I'm always confused by what's happening. I never know until it's too late. So that's the thing. I've realized. My girlfriend pointed out to me later. She says you really should pay more attention because you don't understand when you've won. So there's always that gap of everyone else is reacting, and you're like, okay, I guess it's over. And then then I found out, but for me, the real joy was my kids were in the studio. Yeah. And my kids are enormous shit talkers who have been bad-mouthing Jeff Snyder to his face for months and months.
That's amazing.
And the reaction from them was so much fun. And honestly, one of the reasons I play is just they get so invested and they get so excited. And they came out of their chair. They were super pumped. And it's to see that excitement immediately blow up through them. That was for me the real moment where I realized, all right, we did it. There we go. And they've been celebrating since. I've just been Daffy Ducking it, wearing the belt at home. It's great.
Nice. Rumor has it there might be new belts.
That's what we're hearing. That's what we're hearing.
That's what I heard. That's what I heard. That's what I heard. We'll see. But let's get to. Now, there's an automatic rematch. You knew this was going to happen, that they have this in their back pocket, that if they lost, they can have an automatic rematch if they want. But, as you said, Sam, in the post-match, they don't get to dictate the terms. Nope. And it's going to be an Iron Man match at Collision.
Oh.
You think it's really knowledge versus knowledge in that kind of format.
Here's why I think the Iron Man match is the truest of who is the superior team. We are all being asked the exact same questions.
Bam, bam.
It's
punch the punch. It's you stand in the middle of the ring and you punch each other in the face until somebody falls down. I'm all for it.
Right. Now, statistically speaking, you guys do have higher accuracy percentages on an individual level as well as a collective as a team level. compared to the Patriots. So right off the bat, I think a lot of people are going to have you guys as the favorite. You're the champs now. You have the highest accuracy as a team in the history of the team league, at 79% correct as a team. The Patriots are down by like 76%. So there are no slouches either. Obviously, they've held the belt for over 500 days. Yeah. So like you said, Sam, it's a true test here. You guys are both being asked the same questions. I got to imagine you're really looking forward to this opportunity because you do this, you beat them here, you slay them once and for all.
Absolutely. I mean, the beauty of the Iron Man match is afterward, nobody can complain. Oh, they got easier questions.
Sure.
Oh, he was given extra time to. It's like, no, we are all hearing the same questions, phrased the same way, whether that's, poorly or wonderfully. Well, we're all going to write down our answers, and it's either on the board or not.
I saw somebody say that they thought that we were picking it because it favors us. I think that's insulting to the Patriots, and I don't want to say that. I don't believe that's the case. I believe what this does is it makes it a toe-to-toe match of wits at the end, because we've done both. We've done these now. We've taken one. They've taken one. The game was what we played that time. This last time when we stand across from each other, I wanted to just put it all on the table, knowledge against knowledge.
Yeah, and I think what this does also as well is I had a point and I lost it.
Also, Let me just throw this out there. It's not like Drew and I were having a little kibitz session right after the match, and we were like, oh, this may or may not have been suggested by one of the commissioners, whose name may or may not rhyme with Distin Darloff.
Yeah.
So
I have no idea who you're talking about.
I have no, it may or may, I don't know. But this is not something that we sprang out of the blue. Like, it was cleared with all four competitors before we all agreed to do it, before anyone starts saying, oh, they're putting it in their favor. And Drew is absolutely right. The Patriots won 9 straight matches.
Yeah.
There should be zero doubt that they won't be able to hold their own against me and Drew in a match like this. Frankly,
I do like the idea of whoever said that we should get the new shirt, Sam, that say we put the 1 in 9 and 1.
Uh-huh.
I thought that was a pretty good shirt idea.
It's a pretty good shirt. Yeah.
I don't mind that one.
What I wanted to say, and I remembered, was in the regular format of the Schmoedown, there's luck as a factor in the match. Iron Man match, there's really no luck. There's really no luck involved. It's you know it or you don't, or you can wild guess it, but there's no luck in a category, spinning the wheel. There's no luck in picking numbers and getting favorable categories. So I think you're right that if people are discounting the Patriots or they felt like you guys picked this format because it favors you, it really is the fairest way to settle any of these matches. And that's why I like the first round as well, because it really shows you, comparatively speaking, who knows what compared to who, and it sets the tone for the rest of the match, and then you have all the other things going on there.
Right. I think the only luck that might exist in an Iron Man match is if, say, a disproportionate amount of the questions are about, say, Sly and Arnie movies or movie release dates or 70s or directors. Like, if a disproportionate amount are towards any of those, then you're like, maybe there's not as much luck. I don't know. But I'm hoping that of all those categories I just mentioned, and in addition to a multitude of others, they're all asked about equally. Yeah, that's all the hope.
And my last final question here is about if you saw the Sam Witwer, Ken Napzok Iron Man match, the last 2 minutes, that's an interesting part of the Iron Man match. It's the buzzer round, basically. And what happened at the end of that match was the question was started to be read before time ran out, and they allowed that question to be a valid question and allowed both competitors to answer it. Now, there's been some hubbub by Napzok that because the time ran out, even though the question was asked before time ran out, Sam Witwer answers it, he gets it correct, he's now the new Star Wars champ. My question to you is, if the question is being asked before time runs out, is that a valid question to be answered on?
They need to clarify that before we play the match. They need to simply say if we are reading the question when the time runs out, we will finish the question. If that's the case, then it absolutely should be valid. If it's not the case, then just stop reading. And that should be the case there. I think they need to make that determination.
Sure.
I don't care either way, frankly. It's not going to make the difference. Either we're ahead when the time runs out or we're not ahead when the time runs out. So
we'll see. But yeah, you're absolutely right to bring that up. And I think all four of the competitors will have to get a firm answer on rulings and challenges and JTE rules and everything going in so that none of that should affect the play during the match. Nothing new should be presented to us during the match. We should know exactly what the standards and rules and limitations are for everything going in.
Absolutely. Guys, I want to thank you so much for going over your, frankly, historic title match here. It really, I mean, you guys put the 1 and 9 and 1. It's amazing. Sam, you are the first double-belted player in this league. Real quick on that, what does that mean to you to have both belts at the same time?
It's a truly incredible honor. I feel so lucky that somehow the fates have aligned themselves for that to happen. And I would be absolutely foolish and silly if I did not point out how much of a role Drew plays in me being able to do that, to have both of those belts. There is no question to me that he is the nuts and bolts of us as a team, and I feel like the amount of confidence he gives me as a teammate spills over into my singles matches. So I truly feel that I share the two belt honor with him as much as it is, something that's just me.
That's very kind of you, buddy.
It's true.
Drew, any last words on your team title-winning match?
Yeah, I feel like I have now finally done what I wanted to do in the league, which was I wanted to play the full experience. I wanted to start from scratch in the league and, kind of learn the game as I went. And, I've seen some people say that they don't like the fact that we play the 5-round for the very first time when you play a championship. I like it. I really like the idea that you have to learn while you're playing. That part of that is if you're defending. You've had some time to settle in and you become the champs and you played this format a couple of times and you've got some strengths there. I think that's okay. We had to do it. We had to learn. And we learned in a really weird high pressure situation, not in a regular year. We weren't a team for a year and then we get to a tournament and then we played together. We were formed for a tournament. And there was no guarantee that we would even get along, that there was any chemistry there. And it was enormously canny of Christian to make the suggestion in the first place. And I don't even think he realized quite what was going to happen. What I responded to was the fact that I started enjoying the game once I started playing the teams. And so for me, that made all the difference. I have looked forward to these matches. I've looked forward to this competition. It's real competition, and it's certainly nerve-wracking at times, but it's way more fun and satisfying to be able to turn to your team partner and say, we did it. This is what we set out to do. This is the goal we had. We did it. And I feel like that is the experience I was looking for. And, the single stuff, I'll continue to play, and I'll have a good time, and I'll try certainly to place this year or do better this year. But for me, this is the game. This is what I really enjoy, and this is what I'm having a good time playing.
It's interesting. Christian basically formed the Patriots. They win the titles. Basically helped form you guys. You guys win the titles. Whoever reforms next, maybe you guys should look over your shoulder. I don't know.
Oh,
that would be the Shire Wolves. So.
This is true.
Shire Wolves, and I'm watching him try to get Irwin a date. And good God,
yes.
I would like to inform you that I have it on good authority. He's actually a robot from the future. So, Sam,
I would believe you. Yeah.
Yeah, Sam. I'm pretty sure he's got your name in a hard drive somewhere.
I'm
and mine. So yeah, I'm terrified of that kid.
Yeah, Skynet sent him.
Yeah. And there's a case where I look at someone's gameplay and I'm already desperate to figure out where his weak spots are, because I figure that's the only way that you really go toe-to-toe with him. He's kind of a jukebox. Yeah.
Right. I talked to him afterward. I figured out his weak spot. It's Samm Levine movies.
Good. Excellent.
Never seen any of them.
As soon as you get a pie slice, we are set.
Yep.
Dude.
Sydney White? Never heard of it.
All right.
Guys,
Well, there
thank
you
you.
go.
Thank you so much once again.
Sure.
Congratulations on the huge win. And again, thank you for being here. Thank you.
Wow. Well, a lot said there by the new team champions above the line, Drew and Sam. Whew, was that a highly contested match or what, Frank? I mean, I know the tweets were out there, the comments were out there, the Instagram posts were out there, the Facebook posts were out there. People were saying this is one of the greatest, if not the greatest match of all time.
Absolutely. What other match is there that would topple this? I really don't know, and I think I have to. I mean, you could point towards that MODOK match, even the first Above the Line match with the Patriots. That was
with the Patriots, yeah.
With the I mean, that's another great match. Two great matches from Above the Line and the Patriots, splitting it 1-1. So I'm gonna say it is the greatest team title match we have ever seen.
Where do you think it ranks, though, amongst all matches, not just team? I mean, do you put this as match of the year overall right now? Because I know you liked Irwin and Harris.
Yeah,
Are you now shaky on that?
Because of the stakes on this one, because it's a title match, that gives it a leg up. That gives it the advantage that it should be match of the year. For damn sure, team match of the year. We will get into the single title match that Sam had. I think that's another all-time great match, and we will get into that. So it's definitely, personally, I would put it number one right now, all-time, and number one this year overall, number one match of the year thus far. And we're like halfway through, so who knows what else is gonna happen.
It's pretty crazy. We're only in May, and we've had so many incredible matches this year. I think this year already in May is squashing 2017 Movie Trivia Schmoedown, in my opinion. Just in, of course you had the Spectacular, which was, lived up to the name, but just in the quality of the week-to-week matches and how competitive they've been. And then when we get to these title matches, we're even that much more invested in these stories and these players. That I think that just adds an extra layer, especially when the Patriots are, 9-0. And it's just, as a wrestling fan, this reminds it of me every time I see the Patriots play. There used to be a time where The Undertaker was undefeated at WrestleMania. He never lost. For 20-some-odd years, he never lost a match at WrestleMania. Ever lost a match at WrestleMania. And every year, I'd be sitting there on the edge of my seat in an Undertaker match like, please don't lose, please don't lose, please don't lose, please don't lose. Because it became a thing called the streak, and it was a big deal for wrestling fans. And that's what the Patriots became for me. I'm a big Patriots fan. Both the football team and the Schmoedown team, and I thought, man, these guys are just on a roll. And so I was watching the match, just like, look at that, my background dropped. I was so I was so invested in the match, and I just think that the Patriots are without
Wait a minute,
doubt.
hold on a second. Your damn background fell, Brad.
Okay, hold on.
You gotta get some sandbags for that thing, to hold it down. Like, come on.
Cut this out, Chris.
No. That is great. That's great stuff.
All right, 3, 2. So I'm watching at the edge of my seat with every Patriots match. I'm like, oh, come on, don't lose. Pull this one through. Let that streak continue. And I was so invested in it. I think that's another layer to this match, especially then we see the sequel. And you can tell Above the Line made sure that they saw Remember the Titans just in case.
That's right.
Just in case, brother. They saw it this time around. So I really thought that this match delivered on everything that you would want. And if the Patriots were to ever go out, if they were to ever lose, it would be to a team the quality and the caliber of Above the Line. Yeah. And I think that the Patriots don't need to hang their head at all with the result in this match. Of course, they would have liked to win, obviously, but what a match it was. And coming down to the last question, as so many of these matches do, brother, bravo to all players involved, because
Absolutely.
it was just exactly what you wanted this match to be. It was heart-wrenching, edge of your seat, nail-biting, fun in this match. And that's what this match was. It was so much fun to watch. And I like how Sam and Drew alluded, though. What would have happened if Snyder didn't call for that challenge early on with Thing and The Thing, and I mean, he could have called him out on that Gilbert Grape question.
Yeah.
It would have been really crazy to see what happened. And we're going to bring up, when we get to the singles match, we're also going to bring up a pivotal challenge that was made that really altered the course of that match and probably predicted the winner. It did result really in the win, that challenge. So I thought that this match was just great overall.
The match started off even 10-10, and then Patriots, they started building a lead in that second round, and it stayed pretty pat through that third round. And the fourth round hits, and here come above the line, Samm rattling off 3 in a row, McWeeny tying it up, but the Patriots still are clinging to that 1-point lead. And you're like, can they do it? It's because in the first matchup between these two, above the line had the lead, and they ended up losing. Patriots, they had a 1-point lead, a smaller lead than above the line. Above the line had a 3 or 4 point.
Yeah, but
lead.
the match ended by 1 point.
Right. So,
yeah,
and JTE said in the post match, we were in a position that we would have preferred that if it comes down to the last question, their destiny was in their own hands. That had they answered it, then they would have won and they would have retained the title. They would have been 10-0. So it doesn't seem like there's any saltiness here or the way the match went or anything, because they know at the end of the day it was in their control. Had they just seen the Italian job or remembered clearly the Italian job, that they could have won this match and been 10-0, but that's not the case. But real quickly,
am I the only one who likes that Italian Job movie, by the way? The 03 with the Mini Coopers and the gold in the back.
Honestly,
I really like it.
I've only seen it once, so I can't tell you. And that was like years ago, so I can't tell you when.
And like Seth Green invented Napster or something in that movie. Do you remember that?
Not
There's something
really,
like that.
But that sounds funny.
Anyway, what were you going to say?
After the match, we tweeted out from Schmoedown RD on Twitter, what were your thoughts on the match? So I'm going to read through a few of these responses. And there was a lot in here, so we can probably discuss some of these points here as well. Delisha Russell, a longtime listener, I know that name stretching way back, she says, it was tense all the way through. It's definitely going in the books as one of the matches of the year, and we're only halfway through the season. This is what we were talking about early on here in the episode. Definitely one of the all-time greats. And then we got Krista Friedrich, I think I said that right. My husband said he was more nervous about watching the match than watching a Bears game, which is a big deal. I thought it was great and super happy with the outcome. That's interesting because I am a Bears fan, being from Chicago.
Yeah, I wonder why.
And the Bears suck. He must be a real diehard. I mean, I'm somewhat of a diehard, but I see what you're saying.
There's very few times that Chicago sports and Houston sports overlay. A lot of times in different divisions, different conferences, different whatever. Mm-hmm. But we felt your pain in Houston when y'all had Brian Hoyer on your team. We felt your pain. We did.
Yeah.
We felt it. We knew what you were going through. I always called that whenever he was the starting QB for the Texans. I called it the American Hoyer story.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was just horrendous. But anyway, continue.
Yeah, so we got Miguel Rico. He says, best title match I've ever seen. The hype was real. My palms were sweaty the whole match, but were his knees weak? I don't know. And then we got Samm.
Was there a vomit on his sweater already is my question.
Yeah, I don't know. Mama spaghetti. All right, championships live and die by the speed round, says Samm at some kind of Sam. And then we got, here's another one. Dan Nye goes, great match, but the challenge, an Iron Man match. We got to get to that once we get through these tweets here. We got Stefano. He's saying, this was the Hardy Boys versus Christian and Edge original TLC match of the Schmoedown. I don't know what any of that means. Brad, do you know?
Yes, very good. Very good observation there. The first TLC match was, of course, incredible at SummerSlam.
Oh, cool. Okay. And then
you know what the TLC match is? It's TLC doesn't stand for Tender Love and Care.
I didn't think so. Ladders and chairs.
And
chairs. Okay, there we go.
Yes.
Gotcha. And Sally Meyer Cummings, she says, really good match.
Well, you know what?
Really good match.
I agree, Miss Cummings there. Very good
really
match.
Good match.
Solid.
Let's see what else we got here. We got our good buddy Albert
Albert
Harma.
W.
I don't even know how to say it. I tried to pull it out, but Albert W. He says, it finally happened. The champ has fallen above the line, taking it to the limit. This is just like the Lakers and the Bulls in 91. You know what?
Great reference.
I'm a Bulls fan.
Great reference. Yes,
Great. Also, you could kind of say it's like the old Bulls-Pistons rivalry where the Pistons got the best of the Bulls beforehand, and then the Bulls finally took down the Pistons en route to a championship later on. So, but I like the Lakers-Bulls analogy as well.
Well, I mean, it was the Showtime Lakers, in the championships,
exactly.
Sweeping them. I mean, it was
which is interesting because the Patriots, Boston Celtics, not really the Lakers part, but I get what he's saying. I know what he's saying.
Yeah,
So-
okay, come on now. But let's talk about the Iron Man match. So
Yes.
we knew a championship team the caliber of Patriots and as well as their run has been, we knew they were going to get a automatic rematch. And I don't think that there's anybody out there who would disagree with them getting the automatic rematch. And then when we found out that for the second time in Movie Trivia Schmoedown history, this match will be contested under Iron Man rules, that really took the level of excitement for this rematch up tenfold. This is probably the most anticipated match in Movie Trivia Schmoedown history. It is the rubber match in the trilogy. It's Iron Man match. The titles are on the line. The greatest team ever in the Patriots versus the first ever dual champion in Samm Levine and his partner Drew the Godfather McWeeny, the reigning defending champions. I mean, I don't think there's ever been a bigger match, ever.
No, and that's the great thing about the Schmoedown right now is that the anticipation of all these title matches or even regular league matches, the anticipation, I feel like, for each and every match, depending on the players and teams, of course, it's getting ramped up. And I think that's in part because of the storylines as well. We're getting to know these players and their characters in the Schmoedown, so that heightens the match value, in my estimation. Real quick, after, because you're talking about this is the Iron match will be the third of this trilogy, I kind of wish that at the end of this match we had some Back to the Future-esque, credit scenes where we got a little preview of an Iron Man match.
Yeah.
See what, them getting chased by the Patriots down some, alleyway and what have you. So
I see you've been watching. You've been watching.
oh yeah, I'm a fan of old Bob Zemeckis. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Noted.
Yeah.
Noted.
The Iron Man match, it's going to be interesting to see how they do form it. Because I saw someone mention, is it going to be, will the teams be able to confer for each question, or will they be asked individual questions, but
that is interesting,
awarded points as a team? So, yeah, and, Sam even mentioned, Drew, and they talked about, all that stuff should be ironed out, no pun intended, before they start the match, and so that everybody knows exactly what's going to happen. Because, we talked about, that final question in the Star Wars Iron Man match between Sam Witwer and Ken Knapsack about, if the question is asked before time runs out, will it be a valid question to answer on? And so, they'll make that determination so that everyone knows at that point what exactly happens, because the Patriots or the Lions, then Ken Knapsack, he likes to point towards that little discrepancy.
Yeah, and I like old
twist
Kenny
the knife.
Knapp.
Yeah,
But that's
good
I
stuff.
don't think he's
That's good
got.
stuff.
He's not got a leg to stand on in that, in my
not
opinion.
really.
But
Yeah, I know.
let's talk about now, because that's going to be the most incredible match, and I'm excited to see how it all plays out,
collision.
works out.
Yeah,
and there's a 27% chance.
What were we
I
at
might go to
before?
collision.
What were
I
we
might
at
go to
before?
collision.
Yeah.
Now I'm at a different event. Oh, are we talking to my percentage chance of being at the live event? It's now down to about 11%.
11. Okay.
Yeah, 11%.
We're going down. We're
We're
were we at
spiraling
before?
out of
Where were we-
control. We're at 41 prior, so percentage
that's right,
points.
yeah.
The polls have dropped. But let's go into the second match of the week, the singles championship, the most coveted prize in Movie Trivia Schmoedown. That is Samm Levine versus Clark Wolf. Of course, we know Clark Wolf got that championship shot from Emma Fyffe and the Fyffe Club. So right now, what I want to do before we break down the match at all, Frank Janisch has another interview with Samm, the Inglorious One Levine, the champ. Let's go to that interview right now.
All right, Sam is still with us. We're going to talk about his title match. Drew, thank you for being on the rundown. We enjoyed your insight, and we look forward to having you back on the rundown sometime soon. But now let's get into this title match here against Clark Wolf. Very highly anticipated, in my estimation. You guys have faced off once before. She had the best of you in that match, so I think it was safe to say this was not going to be a cakewalk. You weren't expecting this to be a cakewalk. We also saw on Twitter, it was tweeted out by Emma Fyffe that And with your blessing, I might add that they got to mess around with the buzzers, get a little test run. They had a little study session that they posted on Twitter. And you wanted Clark to be at the top of her game because that's the way you want to defend this side. You want to make sure everyone is at the top of their game.
Yes, I would never want to play someone who's like pulled an all-nighter because they had a sick kid or, a sick animal or something like that. Like, I want to play people who are ready to play the game, who are prepared, who know what to expect, know the rules, know the strategy, because there's no joy in winning if I win, against someone who's like, oh, I didn't realize the speed round was 2 seconds or whatever it is. And I know Clark certainly knows all the rules, but the one thing that I knew she was not familiar with was the buzzer. So I was thrilled when she and Emma and Rachel and Andreyko were all playing around with the buzzers and getting very familiar with that, with the timing and the way those the buzzers actually work. So I felt fine with it. It absolutely had my blessing.
All right, so let's get into this first round. You guys knock out the first 3 questions in a row. We get to the animated Ice Age question. Now,
yes, I have not had the ability to rewatch this match yet.
Okay.
You guys have.
Yes.
Tell me the truth. He said actress, didn't he?
He did not.
Okay.
He said actor-comedian. When you said that, I instantly went back and listened to it, and, it was one of the... When you see Christian adamant about it, and then you hear from the crowd that someone had that
half of them heard actress, half of them heard actor. It's the Yanni Laurel of our day, I guess. So, hey, if I can't be topical, guys,
yes, it's very.
Here's what I knew. I didn't turn my board around. I had Wanda Sykes written on my board.
Okay.
Because I know all the actors in the Ice Age movies. They were at least 4 of those were the movies on my 45 animated movie binge that I did last year. So I know all the actors in them. I started writing when I heard actress comedian. That's why I wrote down Wanda Sykes. Had I been more familiar with the character names, I would have written down Leguizamo, but because my brain heard actress, that's why I wrote Wanda Sykes, and that's why I was really confused. If no one in the room other than me had said they heard actress, I would never have brought it up. I would have said, I heard actress, and then everyone would have said, no, we heard actor. I would have said, oh, okay, my bad. But because at least 4 people in the crowd said we heard actress, that's the only reason I talked about it for a little more than I did. And then Christian really put the screws to me. Do you want to use your challenge? Do you want to use your challenge? And I felt like he's almost setting me up to fail there. So I was like, no, it's a 1-point question. I'm not going to risk it because it seemed to me that was going to be a Major League Baseball type situation where if we play it back, the best case scenario for me would be, it's unclear. It's not clear that he says actress, but it's not crystal clear he says actor. And so in Major League Baseball, your 3 possible outcomes for a challenge are overturned, confirmed, and upheld. And upheld simply means it's not clear in either direction, so we defer to the original call on the field, whether that might have been right or wrong. And I felt like it was going to be call upheld, not confirmed, and I didn't want to risk it, so I let it go.
Well, it was a good move on your part because
it turned out to be
yes.
It turned out to be a game-saving move.
I'm curious, has that ever? I can't recall seeing a match where perhaps you thought you heard something, and it was actually that wasn't what was said. Has that ever? Do you recall that if that has ever happened?
It has happened once before, but even though it was a poorly phrased question and I knew I heard what was not actually being asked, I knew what they were trying to ask, so I didn't waste it. Which was in my match against, I want to say, Bibiani or Roca. It was one of my first Ultimate Schmoedown matches, and they were asking a question about the Hunt for Red October, and they meant to ask about what was the name of the submarine that Scott Glenn captained, but they accidentally said captured.
Oh, okay.
And even though I heard them say captured, I was like, I know they didn't mean captured. I think they mean captained. And I just couldn't come up with it anyway. So it didn't affect it. The only other time I've ever asked for a repeat the question because I legitimately didn't hear what they were saying because it was too many words was when they were asking me about who played the Italian tourist in Rat Race.
Oh, okay.
which was Rowan Atkinson.
Yes.
Yeah, but I had to repeat the question because I didn't hear it. In this one, I didn't say repeat the question because I was certain I had heard him say actress comedian. Obviously, that's not what he said, and that's fine, and I'm glad I didn't waste my challenge, but that's what I heard, so I didn't feel the need to have him repeat it because that's legitimately what I thought I heard. I wasn't even a little bit unclear as to what my brain had heard.
Gotcha.
That is what it was.
And then, because then in the next question you get the fantasy sci-fi. Escapes me what question it actually is, but you missed that one. Now you're down 3-5. Are you a little concerned because you're in a 2-point hole to Clark Wolf, who is, by all rights, one of the best in the first round? She could have easily got an 8.
Easily, I fully expected her to get the full 9 points, and I mean, I wasn't going to panic. Because the wonderful thing about the 5-round match is I have 2 extra rounds to make up any points. If I were down to her 2 or 3 points in a 3-round match at the end of round 1, I'm shaking in my boots.
Sure.
The match is all but over at that point. But because I know I have the 2 extra rounds, including, a round that I've said in my last interview with you, I feel confident that I can do well in that speed round, and I felt like I can make up at least 2 points in the speed round. So I wasn't worried about the 2-point deficit at the end of round 1, or a 3-point deficit, whatever it was.
Yeah, 1-point deficit.
Was it 1 point? Okay.
Going into round 2, yeah.
Yeah, oh, that's right, because she did not get the last question.
Yes, which was a little All Quiet on the Western Front.
What was the question again? Oh, All Quiet on the Western Front, yeah. That's a tough one. Because you either, and I've never seen the movie, but I know all the Best Picture winners.
Gotcha.
At least I know a lot of the Best Picture winners. I don't want to say all.
Sure.
But as soon as they said 1930, I knew what it was.
Gotcha. I didn't even know what it was. And I was just like, what's the oldest war movie I can think of that was, acclaimed? Now, going into the second round, she goes first, again, going in your favor by laying back and seeing what your opponent does. She starts off pretty strong, gets the first 2 questions, and then she falls victim to her last 2 questions, just missing it. Rats and mice, Argentina, Brazil. I mean, this was...
that was the Michael Douglas, Val Kilmer... a Ghost in the Darkness toss-up. Like, if you have it in your head narrowed down to the 2, multiple choice is not going to help you.
Yeah.
You got to just roll the dice, and if you're willing to roll the dice, you might as well roll them for 2 points instead of 1.
Yeah, and I don't know what Clark's thought process was during this moment, but it seems like she had a pretty good idea of what it was. She's in a title match. She's going to go for it, and it just so happens she was off by, that much on
that
both
much.
questions.
One country over, one animal over, and before anyone can complain, I knew both of those answers on my own. I did not. Her answers did not steer me in either direction. I knew it was mice. I know Hitchhiker's Guide very well, and the question about signs. This is a very odd story that this will be my only platform to tell. I can, for some insane reason, very easily hear the difference between Spanish and Portuguese.
Okay.
Because I've dated girls who spoke Spanish and Portuguese and listened to them speak to their families. So that difference is very clear to me. And so when I saw the movie Signs, it is very obvious those children are screaming in Portuguese.
Okay. Well, there you go.
And Portuguese is the national language of Brazil. It's the only It's the only country in South America that Portuguese is the national language of.
There you go. How about that? All right. Now, for your round, you bypassed James Bond. Can you tell me why?
Yes. I mean, I know some of the James Bond movies.
Sure.
Like, I know it's a lot of movies. It's 27 movies, I think. Something like that. 25? I don't know. 23,
24?
And this me talking about it, that's exactly why I spun away from it. I know mostly the Timothy Dalton movies to present and a handful of the Connery movies. Like Never Say Never Again, I think was one of the questions that came up in my free-for-all. One of my free-for-all rounds, I knew that one because that was kind of a loose remake of one that they'd already made. And then, like I said, I know the Dalton movies to present. But if they ask me, like, who's the fourth lead of the George Lazenby movie, if they asked me who the bad guy is in one of the Roger Moore movies, it would just be a total toss-up for me. And while I wouldn't be afraid that Clark could steal any of those points, I wanted to put points on the table. And had I spun the wheel again and it landed on James Bond, it wouldn't have been the end of the world. But I felt okay spinning it again. Like, the only thing where it was really seriously going to hurt me was horror.
Sure.
If it lands on horror, I know Clark is stealing every point I can't get. So I felt safe spinning the wheel again, knowing I'm literally at that point trying to avoid one wedge on the wheel.
Now, you ultimately end up on war, and your first question, the Ryan Felipe question, you say stopgap. Yeah. And it's stop loss. She gets it for the full 2 points, and you seemingly let her right back into the match there. That's got to be kind of a little of a bit of a letdown because you stole 4 points. Now you're let her creep in. You could have really put the pressure on her.
Sure. The problem was I've never seen the film, but I've seen the trailer. Which is a perfect example of a general movie question because that one's just on me. I should have gotten it. I felt confident enough. Actually, no, not confident enough. In that moment, my brain said, oh, it's stopgap. And that's why I said it out loud. And as soon as I heard stop loss, I was like, oh, right, it is stop loss. And that's on me. I didn't want to go to multiple because I thought I had the correct answer.
Sure.
If anything, I should have maybe used a JTE rule and given myself a few more seconds to think about it because I feel like I said that answer right at the end of the countdown. Again, I haven't had a chance to rewatch the match yet. But that one's not going to keep me up at night because even if I'd had 5 more seconds, I probably still would have said stopgap. Like, getting as close to the correct answer as I did was probably the best I was going to do there.
Sure. And then you get your second question correct. And then the third question here, you opt to not go to multiple choice.
Right. That was the about Paths of Glory, right?
Yes. Right?
Right. That was the Cooper question, Paths of Glory.
Yes.
What crime are they charged with?
All right, so now we got to your third question. You missed that when you don't go to multiple choice. Here was the Paths of Glory question. And Clark was so close on this question.
She was very close. And the problem was I saw that movie once a million years ago. And I was confusing it, frankly, with a different movie when I said murder. I was like, oh, it's been so long. And I genuinely felt confident that I didn't want to go to multiple because I felt I was either going to miss it and then she would not be able to steal, or I was going to get it and that would be that. And so that's why I guessed murder and I was thinking of a different movie. But the problem was as soon as she said retreating, then the correct answer actually popped into my brain. I was like, no, it was desertion.
Yeah, her actual answer was left their post, and then you challenge it because, as you just stated, the answer popped in your head, and they convened, and we had Roca in there, our veteran, and he explained the difference in definition, and she was not awarded the points. It would have been a huge two points for her. It would have given her 4 points as well then in steals, and she would have sailed into the victory. And the turning point there was that I had chosen not to use my challenge in round 1. Sure.
And because they awarded her, mind you, incorrectly, the points there. It took my challenge to get them to correct an incorrect answer, and this is, it doesn't happen often, mercifully, but it can't be on the competitors to have to challenge when an incorrect answer is counted as correct or a correct answer is counted as incorrect. So I'm glad the outcome was, as it should have been, but it was a stroke of fate for me, good fate, that once she said it, I was like, oh no, wait, it's desertion. They abandoned their post. It was AWOL.
Yeah.
And that's why I said, nope, challenge. It's not retreating. It's not abandoning their post. I think she said retreating.
She did say left their post.
Okay, she said left their post.
Yeah.
Well, whatever it was,
Yeah.
So it was I knew that was close, but no cigar.
I understand what you're saying about it should be on the competitors to kind of make a correction there, but I also felt like perhaps that what she said, Alice didn't see the difference between the words, and I think perhaps that may have been the case there. But I understand in other instances that has been something that's happened in the past here and there. But again, I think that's a fully warranted criticism.
No, it's fine, and I don't even fault Ellis and Harloff for counting it correct initially. Like of all the scenarios where a challenge was made and a correct answer is marked incorrect, this one I get, because when civilians are dealing with military terms, to us, a lot of the things sound the same. You need an actual veteran like the great John Roca is to come in and go, it sucks, but words are very important in the military, and one thing does mean a very different thing than this other very similar sounding thing. So I'm glad that he was nearby. I'm glad that they arrived at the correct conclusion. It hurts me because Clark was close to correct, but it was an important distinction there, and I'm glad that I remembered the movie enough to challenge.
Yeah, and it's just another sign how close. 3 questions here in this round for Clark, where she's just so close but can't come up with it. And it really was, when you look back at it, this round really was the determining factor whether or not this match ended in a TKO in her favor, or you winning and going into sudden death and winning it that way. This is one of the rare instances where in a 5-round match, the second round is such a huge deciding factor, because
I think every single round was a huge deciding factor. I mean, when you're talking about a match that goes into sudden death, there's no question that you can look at and say, oh, well, that one didn't matter.
That's fair,
like in the championship match between Above the Line and the Patriots, had they overturned Drew, the Thing, had they not awarded him that point, it does not affect the outcome of the game because we won by 4 points.
Sure.
So in that instance, you can argue it all day and night. Should he have gotten the point? Shouldn't he? Doesn't change the outcome. In this one, every single question, every single point mattered because it was tied at the end.
Now, you go back to war category in the third round. Given how close she was on those 2 opportunities she had in war, were you hesitant on how much you should bet? Because maybe she does know more in the war category than perhaps you thought.
Sure. It was the first time I think I've ever not bet 3 in the category. But the problem is, when they're going to ask a betting round question in the category of war, I had virtually no barometer for what they were going to ask at that point. And so, given that I'd gotten 2 out of 4, and I came, stopgap, stop loss.
Sure.
And I was like, oh, Paths of Glory. As soon as I heard, I was like, I was so close. It's desertion. As I felt, I was like, all right, I'm not going to do 0 or 1, but I don't want to do 3, because if I whiff this thing and she gets it, then I'm in dire straits.
Yeah.
But I felt like at that point, using strategy, I felt like Clark was not as confident as I was in war movies, and my gut told me that she was either going to bet 0 or 1. So if I bet 2, if I got it wrong and she got it right, it wasn't going to put that much distance between us. But if I got it right and she got it wrong, that was going to give me enough of a cushion going into the speed round that I could expand on that. And, if we both got it right, then I'd still gain points. So that's why I went with 2 in that moment.
Up to this point, this has been a pretty stressful match. Everything that happened in the first round. The second round was absolutely brutal on both sides, I thought. It
was, because we both got categories, I think, that neither of us would put in, would make the top 10 of what we would consider our strengths. Which is tough. That was the randomness, the luck factor of the wheel, is that we both got categories for our round 2s that were probably, number 11 or 12 for us as categories you feel confident in. And it stinks. We know it's a title match, so we're both trying to put our absolute best games out there to, A, win, but B, make sure that the fans watching feel like we're both worthy of the title.
Sure. Now we get to the speed round, which everyone at this point knows is really your round at this point. And we also now have the knowledge that Clark has had some time practicing on the buzzers, and she does fantastic in this round.
Great job.
She gets all 3 of the ones she buzzed in on, and then you buzzed in on 2, but you missed one. You couldn't come up with Rosamund Pike.
Pike, it's one of those things where I started saying her name and I was like, oh, it's not Rose, it's a weird version of Rose. Yeah. And had I had 5 seconds to answer it, I say Rosamund Pike. You get 2 seconds, so it's either right in the tip of your tongue or it isn't.
Yeah,
I rang in because I knew it, but it just didn't quite all get to my tongue fast enough.
So coming into this round, you were up by 3, but because you got 1 right and 1 wrong, it negates that point. She gets all 3. All 3. Now we are tied at 4 after 4 rounds here, all tied up at 15. It's really anyone's game here going into the 3rd round, but depending what categories you get, it's going to be very, very iffy. What were your thoughts going into the 3rd round? How were you feeling? Were you a little uneasy, confident, or just plainly just waiting to see what happens?
At that point, I felt I was neither confident nor not confident. I felt like, I kind of hate that it's going to be so luck dependent now on the numbers we pick. And in the back of my head, literally, the only thing I was thinking in that moment was, I've got a reasonable chance as long as, say, animated, horror, and maybe Pixar or comic book movies or classics aren't my 5-pointer.
Yeah, and you got animated, horror, and classics, 2, 3, and 5.
Yep.
Unbelievable. Your 2-pointer.
That is the worst luck I've ever had in a final round.
And it showed because you got none of those correct.
That is correct. It was the worst showing I've ever had in a final round. And I know the fans, and again, I want to be clear, I've not seen the match. I don't know what the reactions from the fans are to it. And I know it will be very easy to say because, I don't want to jump the gun here. The same thing happened to poor Clark. She got 3 categories that she was not terribly strong in. Sure. And so we both whiffed all of our last round questions, which for a title match on paper looks terrible. And I get that. I get how bad that looks, that it would be so easy for anyone to say, ugh, I knew all of those. Neither of these 2 should be playing for a belt. That's ridiculous. But I got to tell you, it is not as easy as that when you are sitting there and they say to you, your category in 2-point questions is scores and soundtracks, which for Clark is my animated. Yeah, she knows a little bit. I know she's been studying and doing her best to pay more attention to that kind of stuff, but it's just not something that she innately feels strong in like so many other competitors. And so I knew the answer to her 2-pointer was Michael Giacchino, but that's like her knowing what to me would be an incredibly difficult horror movie question. Sure. Like, I'm sure she knew it was Dawn of the Dead.
Right, yeah.
But to me, I'm like, ugh, that's such a strange category. I've seen Night of the Living Dead. I've seen Dawn of the Dead, but I know there's like 6 other Dead movies in there that they made in the 70s. And I was like, I don't know, man. The direct sequel, like, I feel like, and I almost said Dawn of the Dead for the record, but I was like, the way he said direct sequel, I was like, ugh, I know Dawn of the Dead was late 70s and Night of the Living Dead was the late 60s. I was like, they didn't go a whole decade without a Dead movie, did they? Evidently they did.
They did. Clark just had, as we were speaking on, not the greatest luck either. Scores and soundtracks. There's her 2-pointer, comedy, her 3-pointer, fantasy sci-fi. Yeah, her fantasy sci-fi. The Spiderwick Chronicles. Oh my lord, that was absolutely brutal. But then it came down to your 5-pointer, who was Citizen Kane. In Citizen Kane question, who was Kane's best friend? What was the actor's name?
Right.
Joseph Cotton. I thought Citizen Kane question. I thought it was a 5-pointer. It's regarded as the best movie of all time. I thought for sure that you would get it, but then I heard the question, and that's a pretty tough one.
It is a tough one, and I asked around the room afterward, and the only person in the room, and there were a lot of people I asked, the only person in the room who knew the answer was Rachel Cushing. Which is not at all a surprise to me or anyone else.
Right, like, of course. Wow.
Every other competitor in the room, John Roca, Bibian, nobody knew the answer to that question because it was a very hard question. Which is not to say that the Spiderwick Chronicles was not also hard. But, you know, you're asking about a movie that came out, I think, 3 or 4 years ago versus a movie that came out in 1941, if I'm not mistaken. Right. So... You know, they were both in their own categories, very difficult 5-point questions for sure. And so it was just a truly, truly horrific circumstance of bad luck on all sides of me and Clark just picking the worst possible random numbers for what those categories corresponded to, for what those numbers corresponded to in the categories. So it sucks that it played out the way that it did, and it will be, again, very easy for fans to go, oh, this is dumb, man. They were terrible. How could they both whiff on all 3 of those? And that's just the luck of the draw, guys. Like, I don't think, and I never, ever pat myself on the back when it comes to how I do in the Schmoedown, but I will pat both myself and Clark on the back. We absolutely both deserved to be in that championship match. 100%. What went on in that final round was an absolute mathematical fluke.
It's hard to explain. It was certainly fascinating to watch. It was certainly fascinating to watch that 2 great players such as yourselves just came up 0 for 3 on each of your turns.
I get either of her 2 or 3 pointers, I get them both. She gets either of my 2 or 3 pointers, she gets those both. And then we both miss our 5s, and then we go to sudden death without anyone going, oh, it was weird, man, they're both dumb. No. The exact opposite could have happened. We'd still have gone to sudden death. It was just bad luck that they were flipped, and it wound up being what it was, and I don't fault either of us for our performances in that last round. We both proved with trading points in round 2, with how well she did in round 1, with me getting the betting round question, with her showing her prowess in the speed round, and me being exhausted and screwing up and not being able to get in there fast enough on the last 3 speed round questions. We both proved we're in the right place. We're in the right seats. We're supposed to be in that match. And then it was an absolute mathematical oddity. That final round.
It was very interesting because you talk about the first 4 rounds of this match, very back and forth, very just up and down, and then we get to the final round and it's crickets. So it's very odd. But then we get to the sudden death, this is the first time a singles title match has gone to sudden death. We've seen it before with the Patriots and Trek and whatnot, and other matches as well.
And it was my first time playing in sudden death.
And in the first 3 questions, breeze through it, and then the 4th question is more or less in the animated category, which one would think Samm Levine would not get this question.
Yep.
But lo and behold, you got the animated. The Croods was the answer. Clark knew it as soon as you revealed your answer because she did not have it. Right. And once again, spoiling the surprise, I guess, for Christian, revealing that you got it and you are retaining the belt. You are still double belted. You say you've never been in sudden death, but you know it was formatted like round 1. Did you think head-to-head, knowledge for knowledge, same question? Did you think back to the first round where Clark, she got 7 out of 8. She got her first 7 correct. I could go up against the same thing here in sudden death.
Sure. I was fully prepared as soon as we got into sudden death for Christian to say, here we go. This 2009 horror film was directed by, and I was like, oh, I'll just put my board down. I won't even write anything. I'll just walk over and give Clark the belt. Like, I thought that could happen very easily. He was going to name some obscure horror movie from 2009 that it'll take me 5 more years to see. Frankly, I was really impressed when Clark got the Morgan Freeman Academy Award question.
Wow.
I thought, and I'm very glad I was listening fully to everything asked, I thought the question was going to be, for what film did Morgan Freeman receive his first Academy Award nomination? And that's actually a much lesser-known film called Street Smart, starring Christopher Reeve from 1987. And so I thought that was going to be the question. And I was like, that is a 5-point Oscar movies question. But then when he said first Best Actor nomination, I was like, you tricky motherfuckers. And I also thought maybe people would make a mistake and go with Glory from 1988.
Sure.
At least I think Glory's 88 because, Driving Miss Daisy's 89. But Glory was, again, hang on, I want to make sure I'm correct on this before I say it and stick to it. No, Glory's 89. So he was double nominated that year. How about that shit? So he was nominated for Best Supporting and Best Actor, I guess in 89 for Driving Miss Daisy. But I knew that because love me some Morgan Freeman and love me some Oscar history. So I was very impressed when Clark got that question. And then...
So did you think you actually had it at that point then?
No, because I knew it, but I was like, I could see Clark getting this.
Okay.
Driving Miss Daisy won Best Picture.
Yeah.
It was a pretty big movie. He's the male lead in the movie. And so I don't want to say I expected her to get it, but I was impressed when she did, and I did not feel like that was a slam dunk. And as soon as the fourth question came up, and he said, "What animated movie?" my heart sank, and I just went, "Please be in the 45, please be in the 45, please be in the 45.
Oh, the 45.
And it was in the 45. The Croods was one of the movies that I had watched and taken notes on and wrote a little flashcard for myself. And, Nicolas Cage doesn't do a whole lot of voices. So as soon as he said Nicolas Cage, I was like, oh, it's that god-awful fucking Croods movie. And so now, I just wrote it down, and I expected Clark to have it because animation is not a weakness for her.
Sure.
I expected her to have it.
You've now defended the singles belt twice, Rachel Cushing and Clark Wolf, both members of the Shire Wolves.
Of the Shire Wolves and of the Fife Club.
Yeah.
It's pretty, it's something, and it is, I can assure you, no easy feat.
Oh, absolutely.
It was really, I mean, both times I was absolutely pushed to my limits. Only in hindsight do I wish my match against Rachel were closer, so that I could have maybe gotten all three of my five, my final round questions just to prove, like, no, it was fine. But, that was the a lucky break for me getting that 6-point lead. But Clark, absolutely. I mean, there's no other way to say she pushed me as hard as I could go.
Oh, absolutely.
We were tied. We were absolutely tied. It was my first time going to sudden death. She was a force to be reckoned with that day. And there was nothing easy about that victory. She and Rachel both belong in every championship match. They are such incredibly well-rounded, such strong players who have such a passion for the game. They both study. They're working on the speed round. Like, it is an honor to get to play against either of them.
That's great. Now you are going to be heading towards Collision. We talked about the Iron Man match, but you won't be defending the singles belt at Collision because you're defending the team's title.
The title, right? And after what happened at Spectacular last year, where I had to play the team match and then the singles match.
Yeah.
After Christian had been calling matches all day. I mean, you remember that title match when I won the belt. We were both fighters who had nothing left in them. I mean, quite frankly, if anything, I slipped in the speed round against Clark because, I mean, I know these matches are airing 3 days apart. It was about the same amount of time between when we taped them. Like, I was still kind of emotionally spent from that title match against the Patriots. And I had even asked Christian, like, could I at least have a week in between these matches that are so high stress? Yeah. And he would have granted me that. But the problem is both Clark and myself, we have very busy work schedules at the moment. And neither of us had the same available Friday to get in and tape a match, which is when they generally tape them. So it was like 4 days after the Patriots matches when I had to get in there. And I was kind of exhausted. And I'm not blaming my poor performance. I'm just saying, like, it is even thinking about having high stakes matches 4 days after a previous one can add to your stress. So I did not want to do an Iron Man match followed by another singles defense in the same afternoon. Like, I might as well just give the belt away at that point. So, so Christian and Thad and I talked about it, and the decision had been made if we beat the Patriots and I defended. That we would only do the Patriots rematch at Collision and push the singles title match a little bit further down the road.
Sure. Now, I'm curious what your thoughts are on the potential contenders coming up through the rankings, aside from Drew McWeeny, because he's your teammate. I mean, you got to be looking at people eventually like Ethan Irwin, who's got to get a couple more matches. You got guys like Snyder now, Bibiani. I mean, who do you expect to see? Or you don't even care? You're just whoever one of those guys shows up, it's gonna be a tough one.
Whoever it is, it is. I mean, the good news is I don't have to do any research like I used to have to do when I would play a new opponent, which is to determine their weaknesses so that should it land on opponent's choice, knowing what to pick for them. Because I don't have to worry about that, because as long as Drew and I are the champs and I'm the champ, spinners and opponent's choice will not be on that wheel. So it is what it is.
But Patreon will be.
That's true, but it's not a choice I get to make for them.
True.
So either the categories are, they land in a category they're strong in, or it's a category they're not strong in. Same for us and or me. So I'm not going to worry myself too much. Obviously, on a personal level, I would love to see my ride or die Drew the Godfather get the next contender spot, so that no matter what, if he and I are still the team champions, no matter what, Above the Line still has all 3 belts. I would love nothing more than to just have both of those team belts and just slide that singles belt back and forth over the table between us, for the next year or something. That would be phenomenal to me. But, outside of that, if it's Bibiani, if it's Ethan, if it's
or Lon,
Elon, or if it's Rachel or Clark again, or Andreyko, who I think a lot of people underestimate. If it's any of those guys or girls, it is what it is. And I will do what I always do, which is try to bring the best possible game I can bring that day. And, the funny thing about the championship title matches, you don't have to prove that you are the best player in the Schmoedown to win or retain a belt. You just have to prove that you are the best player in that match.
Well said.
And so that's all it comes down to, is if in that match on that day, Bibiani is better than me, he's going to win that belt. If in that match in that day, I edge out Lon, I'm going to keep the belt. And it's that simple. It's not about, overall, it's about that match that day. So it really is anyone's game on any given day, and that's kind of one of my favorite things about the Schmoedown.
Well, Sam, I want to thank you for spending so much time with us here today. I know you got a busy schedule, and again, congratulations on the team titles, on retaining the singles title. You're a great champion for the league going forward, and I look forward to every single one of your defenses, because I know you are going to bring it in every sense of the word, whether it's the game strategy, all of that stuff. So once again, thank you so much for spending time with us here today. Anything else you want to plug as you get out of here?
The only thing I kind of want to add to this is how much respect I have and want to make sure is paid due to Clark and the Patriots, because this week was a hell of a week for the matches, and both Clark and the Patriots were no small feats. Like, they're all incredible competitors, and if Drew and I didn't say it enough in our post interview, and if I didn't say it enough in my post interview after the matches, I have tremendous respect for all of them, and I know that they are all forces to be reckoned with. And much like me and Drew just having to bide our time and getting our next shot at the Patriots, I know the Patriots will bide their time, Clark will bide her time, and it is just a little bit of waiting before they get their chances again, and I have every confidence that they can all take these belts back or get them for the first time, and I kind of love the Schmoedown for that. So just I have so much respect and love for them, and for you guys, by the way, you Frank, you Chris, for putting all this effort and energy into these podcasts and episodes and sound bites, and what you guys do makes us, the competitors, so much more appreciative of this little family and this little universe that we're building that goes so much further beyond, the questions and answers being asked. And I love you guys for this, and thank you for this. All the reactors, guys like Lioness who help run the groups on Facebook. Hats off, mad love and appreciation to everyone. So that's all I want to add.
Well, there it is. That's Samm Levine, your singles champion, one half of the team champions, Samm Levine, the inglorious one. Thanks a lot, Sam.
Thanks, guys.
Samm Levine definitely had a lot to say in that interview, and that match was just down to the wire, phenomenal. Sudden death in a championship match. Frank, I got to ask you first, has there ever been a match in Schmoedown history, let alone a championship match, where both players go 0, nilch, 9, nothing in round number 3?
Not to my recollection, and I did a little digging, not too much because I didn't have a lot of time, but I'm fairly confident, and I know Mark Ellis was fairly confident, that Zippo 0 third round, final round has never happened. It's crazy for a title match.
So wild. It was so wild, but of course it came down to it.
It's interesting too because Sam points out that had their categories been swapped, he knew a couple of her questions, Clark knew a couple of his questions, so you just flip it. It's not like they're completely, they didn't. No one knew those answers to the questions. It's just the luck of the draw of those questions that were assigned to each of them had it turn out the way it turned out in that final round.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was just getting to that point and then seeing that happen was just so nuts. The other thing I want to talk about, let's go to the beginning of the match.
Yeah.
The Ice Age question about the actor / or the actress, however it was phrased. Samm Levine definitely was not happy with that upon hearing the question back on the actual match. Considered challenging it, decided not to. What did you think, Frank?
Well, I know. Well, Sam, he states in our interview that he has not had a chance to go back and listen to the match or watch the match. So everything that I was saying to him was, refreshing his memory. So yeah, it's interesting too because when I heard it and he brought it up, I actually had to rewind and was like, did Ellis actually say actor comedian? And sure enough, he did. I'm
pretty sure everybody watching that match was like, okay, let me go back. Let me go back right now.
Let me double check. And it's funny too because Sam was very adamant that Ellis did say actress. Christian was very adamant that he did not. And, Sam thought better of it. I think he read the room. He kind of figured out, as he explained in the interview, he figured out that it's not really worth a challenge. It's a 1-point question. And thankfully, he did not challenge because had he done that, he would not have been able to challenge in round 2.
Had he done that, he would have lost the title.
Oh, absolutely, exactly,
100%.
Mm-hmm. He would have been
challenged
TKO.
that question. He would have lost. He would have lost the title in round number 3. There's no question about it. Because that challenge to the Clark Wolf question, it was in the war category. It was something about leaving the
Paths of Glory.
Yeah, I think so. It was about leaving your post, or was it retreating?
Clark said leave your post, and Ellis decided to accept the answer when it was in theirs. It said retreat. In their answer key, it said retreat, and Sam challenges it and gets it overturned, and so he erases the points from Clark. And like you said, Brad, had he challenged the Ice Age question, he doesn't get to challenge the Paths of Glory question and keep those points away from Clark, which ultimately decided them going into sudden death, because as we just talked about, they went over in the final round. Had that happened to Sam there, and Clark has a lead going into that final round, she never has to answer a question, and she wins this match by TKO. So I mean, that is the difference.
Would have been incredible if that were the case. So I really enjoyed this championship match. I think Samm Levine is on a great roll, especially now he's taken down in his first, 2 singles titles defenses. He's taken down 2 of the members and the most lethal members of the Fife Club. So there's got to be some bad blood there a little bit. I mean, to take down Rachel Cushing and Clark Wolf in the same, a 3-month span, 2-month span, whatever it was. Incredible.
His first 2 defenses, basically. I mean, that's no easy feat, man.
No, absolutely not. And it's just, I think that, I mean, I don't know. Do we see a continuance of this? I mean, I know there's a lot of number one contender stuff out there right now. We don't really know who is. I don't know as of this recording who is actually the number one contender.
That's a good question because there's so much going on.
As far as rankings, and there's a lot of.
I mean, top 10 near the top there. I don't know if top that is anymore due to the fact.
No, I'm talking more so singles.
Oh, singles, sure. Okay. I think we got that Bibbs Snyder match, right?
Yeah.
Drew still got to play. Yeah, Bibbs and Snyder, and then Drew still got a match. I mean, so
can you imagine?
It's just
Drew McWeeny.
It's a big.
It's
a big jumbled up mess for the number one contender spot.
Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, can you imagine Drew McWeeny versus Samm Levine?
Honestly, I really don't care at this point who is actually number one. Or it just matters who can get to the title shot. That's all I care about, because all these matches they're setting up are great matches. So you could be 10th for all I care, and it's still gonna be a great match. So
who do you think out there can beat Samm Levine? Who can dethrone him? I mean, we saw him go against Rachel Cushing. Most people would say her. Clark Wolf would be in the top 3, 4, 5 choices that somebody might select. Drew McWeany's up there. I don't know if Bibiani is in my top kind of couple to beat Samm Levine. As great as he is, we see what happens at times. I think my pick to beat Samm Levine, and I think that he could do it, is the outlaw John Roca. I think if there's anybody out there, John Roca would outplay Samm Levine strategically, and I think that he can compete with him on a knowledge-for-knowledge basis.
Yeah, and Sam also touched on this. He said he's not the most knowledgeable person in the league.
Yeah.
But he knows how to play the game, and I've always said that that's more than half the battle.
It's the speed round.
And it's that.
Except though in this match. In this match, the speed round didn't really help him. It actually hurt him. Clark Wolf killed him when it came to the speed round.
And that's just a testament to the will Clark had in this match, because she was down a few points there, and it's looking kind of bleak. She nearly missed on like 3 questions in that second round. 2 of hers, and the steal missed. The opportunity there. She falters in that wager round, but then she comes right back in the speed round, and it's tough too, because Sam, he automatically gets the first question right in that speed round. You're like, well, here we go. He's gonna run the table. But then she answers right back and gets back a point. Sam stumbles on his second attempt at a question in that round, and then Clark finishes off the round. So, and we're all tied up going into that final round, and it's anybody's game at that point. But we know how that round played out. So, it was just, this is one of the more fascinating title matches I think we've ever had. That second round, I'm still in complete shock of that second round. It was so important to the outcome of this match in Samm Levine's case. Because if it didn't go the way that it did, he just doesn't win, and had Clark said, was it rats and mice or whatever it was? I can't remember. Was it mice?
Yeah. She said rats, and the answer was mice.
Mice, and, she just... Man, it's just so close. So I don't know how Clark's feeling after this loss. I don't think terribly bad, because she did put up a good performance. But if she looks a little closer at the match, I mean, she can pick out a few occasions where, had I just done this, had I just done that, she's got herself a belt. So that can be tough to deal with, I imagine.
Yeah, and especially when she's been so close, now here twice, in a championship, singles championship match, to fall short, it definitely hurts. But I still have no doubt that either Rachel Cushing or Clark Wolf will be the singles champion at some point in time. You don't think so?
I would like to believe so. Actually, I think, and it's just giving. Well, it's interesting too because I've seen what Clark can do in the speed round now, and I've seen Rachel a couple times in the speed round. Not the greatest, but they did have practice. They practiced together. We saw that tweet that Emma put out of them practicing with the buzzers. That clearly, I would like to think, helped Clark in this situation. She bested Samm 3 of the 5 questions, and she was practicing up against her teammate Rachel Cushing. So let's see if Rachel got a little bit more better on the buzzers about answering and taking shots here and there. So I would like to think that they could do it, and I certainly think that Rachel and Clark definitely have the ability to do it. I just don't know when or who against.
And here's the thing, though, is let's not forget, Breanne Chandler is still out there with this free-for-all title. Mm-hmm. And she can pass it to anybody she wants to. And, I don't know. Maybe, and she's kind of we know that she has her relationship, what have you, with Kalinowski, K.O. Kalinowski. But maybe she, changes her alliance like she's done in the past. And maybe we see Breanne Chandler, join the Fife Club. And then, we have another. No, I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out there.
Sure.
But that's what I'm saying. There's so many possibilities of who Samm Levine's next opponent can be. And that's why I'm excited to see who it is. But regardless, one of the greatest championship weeks of all time. 2 great championship matches. The tag championship match, perhaps the best team match of all time.
Yeah.
And so the Schmoedown keeps rocking, keeps getting better, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen at Collision. We got Iron Man matches. We've got number 1 contender matches. We've got title matches galore, and that Collision's going to be here before you know it. So it's insane that we're almost halfway through the year. But Frank, anything you want to add before we get out of here?
I just want to reflect on what Samm said at the end of the Above the Line, or when Drew, that first interview part, where he talks about, the kind of family and the community that the Schmoedown has built and how we're all in this together, and it's just a real fun time to be a part of all these different groups and podcasts and shows and things like that. So, again, I just want to echo what he said there because it's really interesting to be a part of this. We do the rundown, and there's Take 3 stuff, and there's all the belt stuff, and then there's Late to the Party do the reactions, and all their people doing reactions, and everyone participating in the Facebook group, that community.
Our guy Albert,
there's a GIF guy out there. He does all the Schmoedown GIFs. I mean, it's really incredible what the fan base has done, and the competitors, and everyone's embraced one another in this community. So. Yeah, I just really liked what Samm had to say on that.
And it's these championship weeks that sometimes in the big events you reflect on that kind of thing, and it's awesome. I want to give a big shout out to Samm Levine, Drew McWeeny, and everybody who helped get them involved in the league, because they've made the league so much more interesting since they've arrived, and I appreciate them for taking their time and being on the Schmoedown Rundown. Even though I couldn't conduct the interview, Frank did a hell of a job. Hell of a job there, kid. Hell of a job there, kid.
It was okay. I could barely talk. I couldn't form a lot of sentences there.
Well, that's form sentences now. Most weeks. I'm just saying. No,
it's true. No, it's true. It's true.
You know what you should try? You should try Alpha Brain. Have you ever heard of this?
I don't know. Maybe I should just brush my teeth more often. I don't know.
A couple carrots. Never hurt anybody. But for Chris Clark and Frank Janisch, I'm Brad Gilmore. Make sure you follow us at Schmoedown RD on Twitter and Schmoedown Rundown on Instagram. You can follow Frank. Where can they follow you? Frankie J29. Is that right?
You got it.
Frankie J29.
Twitter, Instagram, Frankie J29.
Chris Clark. I know it, but I want you to say it. Chris Clark. Where?
I know it, but it's better if you say it.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Chris Clark 8788. Those numbers mean nothing.
That's right. And you can follow me on all social media at Brad Gilmore. This is the Schmoedown Rundown, and we'll be running things down and running wild, brother, next week, brother.
Okay.